They believed their radar could see everything. For decades, the Soviet Union invested enormous resources into building one of the most advanced air defense networks in human history. Thousands of radar stations, endless operators, staring at glowing green screens, all designed around a single assumption. If an aircraft entered their airspace, they would see it. That belief gave them confidence. It gave them control. And during the Cold War, it gave them a sense of security. What they didn't know was that deep inside the United States, American engineers were preparing to break that belief forever. Long before computers were powerful, long before stealth became a buzzword, the United States began asking a dangerous question. What if air superiority wasn't about flying faster or higher? What if the most powerful aircraft wasn't the one that dominated the sky, but the one the enemy never knew was there? While the Soviet Union focused on detecting everything, American scientists quietly focused on something far more radical, making an aircraft disappear. The idea of invisible aircraft had existed since the earliest days of aviation. During the First World War, pilots feared being spotted by enemy soldiers on the ground, and engineers experimented with transparent materials in an attempt to hide planes in the sky. Those early ideas failed, but the problem never went away. As radar technology evolved, invisibility stopped being about human eyesight and became a battle against physics itself. Radar worked by sending electromagnetic waves outward and waiting for them to return. If the signal came back, something was there. For decades, every aircraft reflected those waves. Every aircraft played by the same rules. The Cold War changed everything. By the 1950s, the United States relied heavily on high-altitude reconnaissance to understand Soviet military capabilities. The U-2 spy plane was built to fly higher than any interceptor, higher than radar was believed to reach. For a brief moment, it worked. Then Soviet radar improved. The illusion shattered. American aircraft were detected. One was shot down. And with that single event, it became clear that altitude and speed were no longer enough. The United States needed a completely new way to think about air warfare. In the 1970s, a breakthrough emerged from an unexpected place. American engineers began studying mathematical research that explained how radar waves interacted with different shapes. The conclusion was counterintuitive and revolutionary. Smooth, curved surfaces reflected radar efficiently, sending signals straight back to their source. Sharp angles, however, scattered those waves away, dispersing them into space. A plane built from flat, faceted surfaces wouldn't reflect radar the way traditional aircraft did. It wouldn't look sleek, it wouldn't look elegant, but it would be almost invisible. The first experimental designs looked absurd. Engineers themselves doubted whether such a machine could even fly. The aircraft resembled a jagged diamond, unstable by every traditional aerodynamic standard. Yet American innovation had an answer for that too. Advanced computers and fly-by-wire systems corrected instability faster than any human pilot ever could. What once seemed impossible suddenly became operational. For the first time in history, an aircraft was designed from the ground up not to be faster, not to be stronger, but to be unseen. That aircraft became the F-117 Nighthawk. It carried no radar of its own. It carried no defensive weapons. Every detail served a single purpose: stealth. Radar-absorbing materials covered its surface. Its weapons were hidden inside the fuselage to avoid detection. Even its engine exhaust was engineered to reduce heat, making it harder to track with infrared sensors. To the Soviet radar network, this aircraft didn't look like a threat. It barely looked like anything at all. For Soviet air defense operators, this was deeply unsettling. Airspace they believed was sealed suddenly wasn't. Targets were struck without warning. Radar screens showed nothing unusual until it was already too late. The Cold War had always been a competition of intelligence and technology, but now the balance had shifted in a way that was impossible to ignore. The United States had not simply built a better aircraft, it had changed the rules of the game. The F-117 was not invincible. No aircraft ever is. In 1999, one was shot down, proving that stealth reduced risk rather than eliminating it. But by then, the message had already been delivered. The era of radar dominance was over. Every major power now understood that what mattered most wasn't what you could see, but what you couldn't. When the Cold War began, both sides believed superiority would come from numbers, speed, and firepower. When it ended, it was clear that the true advantage belonged to the nation that mastered invisibility. The F-117 Nighthawk was more than a plane. It was proof that American innovation, patience, and engineering could quietly reshape global power without ever being seen.